And to get more clarification on this legal battle, earlier on I spoke with legal expert Liberus Oshoma and I asked him how strong the argument of the states are.
No matter how far a wrong runs, it is never too late to correct it. Basically, what the state governors are saying is that the EFCC, by virtue of the Supreme Court judgment, I think the dissenting judgment or so, or judgment of the Supreme Court in Joseph Nwobike against the federal government, the Supreme Court recognized the fact that the EFCC Act was a product of United Nations Convention against corruption. And that being a United, and so the governors now are saying, being a United Nations Convention, a fallout of United Nations Convention against corruption, that by virtue of Section 12, subsection 3 of the Constitution, such a convention, for it to become accepted wholly and applicable to the states, being a federal structure, that for it to be applicable to the states, that the states' houses of assembly also, a majority of them must also concur to the law setting up that establishment. And if you remember, as at the time the law was set up, Obasanjo then was a school principal who will flog governors into line. And so none of the governors then will look at him in the face and say, this law is, not in compliance with Section 12, subsection 3. But now that's the way it is. What basically, and also a very senior lawyer, former NBA president Ulisa Agbakoba, has also written a letter and has been talking about this for a very long time. Has also written to the National Assembly on it. So what this basically means is that the EFCC, as presently constituted, is not a legal, it's not a constitutional, has not complied with the procedure for constitutional formation. And so when it has not complied, what it basically means is, you should break completely, and then you can now start all over again. That's what it means.
All right, well, lastly, before I let you go, now, if the Supreme Court rules in favor of the state, would the state need to create their own anti-corruption bodies? And what happens to cases currently under the EFCC?
You see, a non-properly constituted agency cannot fight corruption. What it means is that the establishment of that agency in its first place is corrupt. Do you understand? And so, if you look at the process of making laws under a federal arrangement, once a law is enacted by the National Assembly, for it to be applicable to the various states must domesticate that law. And that's why if you look at the Child Right Act, for example, when it was enacted by the National Assembly, for it to be applicable in states like, on other states, a lot of the states in the South domesticated it, while the states in the North refused to domesticate it and say, look, by virtue of our culture and all of those things. So in the same vein, there are so many other laws. But for a United Nations Convention, it's like a treaty, for it to be domesticated into our laws, it should pass a process of constitutional amendment. What it means is that once the states, also majority of the states, also accept that process, that amendment, during the amendment process by the National Assembly, it becomes like a constitutional process of a constitutional way of amending the Constitution. So that means the states and the National Assembly could join to amend that law, to create that law. So the establishment of the law now gives it, a national outlook.